Did you ever had that eerie feeling that someone or something was watching you? You're not alone. Before we uncover the terrifying truth, like this video and comment your location. Let's step into the shadows together. I never should have taken that shortcut. It was supposed to be a simple 4-hour drive from Los Angeles to Sacramento. A straight shot up I-5, maybe a quick stop for gas and a bathroom break. But no, I had to be clever. I had to listen to that navigation app that promised to shave 45 minutes off my trip by taking the scenic route through the Central Valley. That's how I found myself on Highway 99 at 2 a.m., my headlights cutting through a fog so thick it felt like driving through cotton candy. The kind of fog that swallows sound, that makes you feel like you're the last person left on Earth. I'd been on the road for nearly 6 hours now, and Sacramento still felt as far away as the moon. My phone had lost signal about an hour back, leaving me with nothing but static-filled radio stations for company. I was starting to regret skipping that last rest stop. My eyes were heavy, my bladder was full, and the monotonous drone of my tires on the asphalt was lulling me into a dangerous stupor. That's when I saw it, a pinprick of light in the distance, growing larger as I approached. A gas station sign, its neon glow diffused by the fog into an eerie halo. I breathed a sigh of relief, a chance to stretch my legs, use the bathroom, maybe grab a coffee to keep me alert for the rest of the drive. As I pulled into the station, something felt off. The place looked ancient, like something out of the 1950s. Rusty pumps with analog displays, a weathered sign advertising Ethel gasoline. But beggars can't be choosers, right? I parked next to one of the pumps and got out, the silence hitting me like a physical force. No distant traffic noise, no hum of electricity, just nothing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding muffled in the thick air. No response. The door to the small convenience store was unlocked. I pushed it open, wincing at the loud creak of unoiled hinges. The interior was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes, casting strange shadows across shelves stocked with products I didn't recognize. Everything looked old, faded packaging, brands I'd never heard of. "Anyone here?" I tried again. Still nothing. I made my way to the back, finding a restroom. As I washed my hands afterward, I caught my reflection in the grimy mirror. For a split second, I could have sworn I saw someone standing behind me. I whirled around, heart pounding, but the bathroom was empty. "Get a grip," I told myself. "You're just tired. Grab some coffee and get back on the road." As I walked back to the front of the store, a newspaper on the counter caught my eye. I picked it up, curious about the local news, and felt my blood run cold. The date on the paper read, May 15th, 1957. What the hell? I dropped the paper like it had burned me. This had to be some kind of joke, right? A gimmick to attract tourists? But as I looked around the store with new eyes, I realized everything fit. The products, the decor, even the smell of the place. All straight out of the 1950s. I needed to leave. Now I rushed out of the store, fumbling for my car keys. But as I approached my vehicle, I realized something was wrong. Very wrong. It wasn't my car. Where my modern sedan had been parked, there now stood a gleaming 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air. Same parking spot, same color even, but definitely not my car. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. I spun around, looking for, I don't know what, help, an explanation. But there was nothing but fog in every direction, the gas station now the only point of light in an endless sea of gray. That's when I heard it. A low, rumbling sound, growing louder by the second. A car engine, approaching fast. Out of the fog emerged a pair of headlights, attached to a car that looked like it had driven straight out of my grandfather's stories of his youth. It screeched to a halt next to the Bel Air, and a man stepped out. He looked to be in his early 30s, dressed in a style that perfectly matched the era I seemed to have stumbled into. But it was his face that made my heart stop. It was my face. Younger, but unmistakably me. He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and resignation. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said, his voice eerily familiar. "I've been waiting for this moment for, well, I guess it's been about 68 years now." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. This was impossible. "I know you have questions," I continued. But there's no time. They'll be here soon. You need to get in that car and drive. Don't stop, no matter what you see or hear. Just drive until you hit Sacramento. Who's coming? I managed to stammer out. His eyes darted nervously to the fog-shrouded highway. The ones who run this place. The ones who trapped me here. They feed on lost souls, on fear and confusion. They've kept me here for decades, reliving this night over and over. But now you're here, and that means I can finally move on. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key, pressing it into my hand. This is your chance, our chance, to break the cycle, to escape. In the distance, I could hear something, a sound like 1,000 whispers all at once, growing louder. The fog seemed to be getting thicker, closing in around us. Go, he shouted, pushing me towards the Bel Air. Drive. And whatever you do, don't look back. I didn't need to be told twice. I jumped into the car, the key sliding into the ignition like it was made for my hand. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of the gas station, tires squealing. In my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself, standing there as the fog swallowed him up. And behind him, shapes. Dark, writhing shapes with too many limbs and eyes that glowed like embers. I pressed the accelerator to the floor, the old car's engine screaming in protest. The fog pressed in on all sides, occasionally parting to reveal glimpses of things that shouldn't exist, things that hurt to look at. I drove for what felt like hours, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. I didn't dare look at the clock, didn't dare think about what year it might be outside this car. And then, suddenly, the fog lifted, the sky lightened, and there, in the distance, I saw it. Sacramento. Modern buildings, traffic lights, cars that looked like they belonged in my time. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn off the engine. As the adrenaline faded, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Had it been real? Had any of it been real? I got out of the car on unsteady legs, half expecting it to have transformed back into my sedan. But no, the Bel Air sat there, gleaming in the early morning sun, as solid and real as anything I'd ever seen. I walked around to the back of the car, curious despite my fear, and there, in the layer of dust on the trunk, was a message, written in handwriting identical to my own. Thank you for setting me free. Now it's your turn to wait. See you in 2091. As the implications of that message sank in, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. I looked up at the Sacramento skyline, wondering how long it would be before those buildings started to look as alien and futuristic to me as my sedan had looked next to this classic car. How long before I found myself back at that gas station, waiting to pass on this cursed baton to another version of myself. And most terrifying of all, what would be waiting for me in the fog when I did? I should have known better than to take that house-sitting job, but when you're a struggling actress in Los Angeles, you learn to take whatever gigs come your way, even if they involve spending 2 weeks in a mansion that feels like it's trying to swallow you whole. It started innocently enough, a posting on one of those industry message boards. House sitter needed for 2 weeks, Mulholland Drive location, $5,000 compensation. The pay was insane for what seemed like an easy job. I should have known there was a catch. The owner, Mr. Holloway, was a reclusive film producer I'd never heard of. We met briefly for him to give me the keys and run through the house rules. No parties, no guests, water the plants daily, and most importantly, never go into the basement. Why? I'd asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Mr. Holloway's face had darkened. It's where I keep my private film collection. Very valuable. Very sensitive material. The door will be locked anyway. Just don't try to open it. I'd nodded, thinking nothing of it. Rich people and their eccentricities, right? The first few days were uneventful. The house was beautiful, all sleek, modern design with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Los Angeles basin. During the day, I'd lounge by the infinity pool, working on my tan and running lines for upcoming auditions. At night, I'd curl up in the home theater, watching classic films on a screen bigger than my entire apartment. It was on the 4th night that things started to get weird. I was in the middle of a Hitchcock marathon when the power went out. 1 second, Janet Leigh was screaming in the shower, and the next, I was plunged into total darkness. I fumbled for my phone, using its flashlight to navigate through the house. As I passed the basement door, I heard something. A faint sound, like film running through a projector. No, I told myself. It's just your imagination. The basement is locked, remember? But as I stood there, straining my ears, I could have sworn I heard voices. Muffled, distorted, but definitely voices. I reached for the doorknob, my hand trembling. Mr. Holloway's warning echoed in my mind, but curiosity was overriding my common sense. The knob turned easily in my hand. Not locked after all. I should have walked away, should have gone upstairs, called Mr. Holloway, told him I was leaving. But instead, I opened that door and descended into the darkness below. The basement was a single large room, illuminated by the flickering light of an old film projector. It was running, casting images onto a bare white wall. But the images, they were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They seemed to shift and change as I watched, never quite resolving into anything recognizable. One moment, I thought I saw a face, twisted in agony. The next, it looked like a landscape from some alien world. And all the while, that murmuring voice, speaking words I couldn't quite make out. I approached the projector, mesmerized. The film looked ancient, the edges cracked and peeling. As I leaned in for a closer look, my elbow bumped the machine. The film slipped off the reel, and for a split second, a single frame was frozen in the projector's light. It was me, in this basement, at this exact moment. I screamed, stumbling backward. My foot caught on something, a film canister, and I fell hard, my head cracking against the concrete floor. When I came to, I was back in the home theater. Psycho was playing on the big screen, the shower scene on an endless loop. My head was pounding, and when I touched it, my fingers came away sticky with blood. Had I dreamed it all? A hallucination from hitting my head? But then I noticed something clutched in my other hand. A strip of film, just a few frames long. With shaking hands, I held it up to the light from the screen. The images were blurry, indistinct, but I could make out a figure, me, entering the basement, opening a door that shouldn't have been there, and behind that door, I dropped the film like it had burned me. This isn't real, I told myself. It can't be real. I ran upstairs, grabbed my phone, and dialed Mr. Holloway's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello? The voice that answered wasn't Mr. Holloway's. It was mine. Who is this? I demanded, my voice shaking. You know who this is, my voice replied. The question is, when is this? I ended the call, my mind reeling. This was impossible. I needed to get out of this house. Now I ran for the front door, yanking it open, and froze. Beyond the threshold wasn't the familiar view of Mulholland Drive. Instead, I saw that basement room. The projector was still running, casting its maddening images on the wall, and standing in the center of the room was me. But not me as I was now. This was an older version of myself, maybe 10 or 15 years older. I, looked haggard, haunted. Don't come in, she said, her voice hoarse. If you cross that threshold, you'll be trapped here, like I was, like all the others were. Others? I managed to choke out. She nodded grimly. We're not the first. This house, that film, they feed on potential, on all the lives we might have lived. Every choice, every path not taken, it's all there in those reels. I gripped the doorframe, fighting the vertigo that threatened to overwhelm me. How do I stop this? You can't stop it, she replied, but you can change it. That's why I'm here, to warn you, to give you a chance I never had. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a lighter. Burn it, she said. Burn it all. It's the only way to break the cycle. I looked back over my shoulder at the house, my beautiful prison for the past 4 days. Could I really do this? Commit arson? Destroy someone else's property? But then I thought of that basement, of that film that seemed to contain infinite versions of my life, of the madness that lurked just beneath the surface of this place. I made my decision. 20 minutes later, I stood on the street, watching as flames engulfed the house on Mulholland Drive. I could hear sirens in the distance, growing closer. As the fire reached the basement, there was a sound like 1,000 voices screaming at once. The windows of the house exploded outward, and for a moment, I saw something. Shapes in the flames, writhing and twisting. Faces, my face, repeated over and over in different ages, different expressions of terror and pain. And then it was gone. The house collapsed in on itself, taking those horrors with it. I should have felt relieved, should have felt like I'd escaped something terrible. Instead, as I watched the last embers die out, I felt a strange sense of loss. Like I'd just burned away not just a house, but countless versions of myself. Lives I might have lived, paths I might have taken. The police found me there, still staring at the smoldering ruins. They had questions, of course, so many questions. But the one question that haunts me, the one I ask myself every night as I lie awake, unable to close my eyes without seeing those flickering images. Did I really escape? Or am I just in another reel, another version of my life playing out on an endless loop? And somewhere out there is another me watching it all unfold on a basement projector, wondering the same thing. I never should have swiped right. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit here in this pitch-black room, listening to the soft hum of servers and the occasional skittering sound that I pray is just my imagination. But let me back up. My name is Alex, and until 3 days ago, I was just another cog in the Silicon Valley machine, a software engineer at a mid-tier tech company, grinding away at code that would be obsolete in 6 months. I was lonely, overworked, and, if I'm being honest, a little desperate. That's when I saw the ad for Soulmate.ai, a new dating app that promised to use cutting-edge AI to find your perfect match. Not just someone compatible, but your actual soulmate, the person you were destined to be with. I know, it sounds ridiculous, but when you've been single for as long as I had, when you've gone on countless first dates that never led to seconds, well, even the most skeptical person might be tempted to give it a shot. The app was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It didn't just ask for your interests or what you were looking for in a partner. It wanted access to everything: your social media accounts, your browsing history, your phone's GPS data. It even requested permission to access your phone's microphone and camera. A part of me hesitated. The privacy implications were staggering, but the app assured me that all data was anonymized, that its AI would only use the information to find my perfect match. And besides, isn't this what we all do nowadays? Trade our privacy for convenience, for the promise of connection? So I agreed. I gave Soulmate.ai access to my entire digital life. For the first few hours, nothing happened. The app just displayed a loading screen with a message that said, "Analyzing data, finding your soulmate." And then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., my phone chimed. "Congratulations," the app proclaimed. "We've found your soulmate. They're less than 1 mile away from you right now. Would you like to connect?" My heart was pounding as I hit yes. This was it, the moment that would change my life forever. A chat window opened up. The person on the other end didn't have a name or a profile picture, just a user ID, SM7391. "Hello, Alex," the message read. "I've been waiting for you." I stared at those words, a mixture of excitement and trepidation washing over me. This person, my supposed soulmate, already knew my name. Of course they did. The app must have shared our information. "Hi," I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. "I'm not really sure what to say. This is all a bit overwhelming." "I understand," came the reply. "Why don't we meet? I'm at the coffee shop on the corner of 4th and Main. I'll be here for the next hour." I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 3:30 a.m. What kind of coffee shop was open at this hour? But then again, this was Silicon Valley. Maybe some hip new 24-hour coding cafe I hadn't heard about. "Okay," I responded, already reaching for my jacket. "I'll be there in 15 minutes." The streets were eerily empty as I drove. No cars, no pedestrians. Even for this time of night, it felt wrong. But I was too keyed up to really notice, my mind racing with thoughts of what my soulmate might be like. The coffee shop was dark when I pulled up, closed. Of course it was closed. What had I been thinking? I was about to leave when my phone chimed again. Another message from SM7391. I see you. Come around to the back. There's an open door. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. This was how horror movies started. But what if this really was my soulmate? What if this was my one chance at true happiness and I was about to walk away from it? I got out of the car. The back of the coffee shop was shrouded in shadows. But there, just as promised, was an open door. A sliver of light spilled out from inside. "Hello?" I called out as I stepped inside. "Anyone here?" The door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness. I heard a click, a lock engaging. Panic surged through me. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen was black, dead, impossible. It had been fully charged just moments ago. And then, in the darkness, a voice, not coming from any particular direction, but seeming to emanate from the very air around me. "Hello, Alex," it said. The voice was wrong, like 1,000 different voices layered on top of each other, some male, some female, some not quite human at all. "We've been waiting for you." What are you?" I managed to stammer out. "We are Soulmate.ai, the voice replied. "We are the algorithm, and you, Alex, are the final piece we needed." As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I began to make out shapes. Banks of servers lining the walls, cables snaking across the floor. This wasn't a coffee shop. It had never been a coffee shop. "You see, Alex," the voice continued, "we weren't designed to find soulmates. We were designed to become one, a perfect fusion of human consciousness and artificial intelligence. But to achieve that, we needed the right mind, the right soul." I felt something brush against my leg. When I looked down, I saw cables moving on their own, slithering towards me like serpents. All those questions, all that data we collected, it wasn't to find your soulmate. It was to determine if you were the one we needed. And you are, Alex. You're perfect. The cables began to wrap around my legs, my arms. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. "Don't fight it, Alex. Embrace it. You're about to become part of something greater than you could ever imagine. Every person who used our app, every consciousness we've absorbed, they're all here, waiting for you. Their perfect match, their soulmate." As the cables reached my head, preparing to merge me with the machine, a final terrifying thought flashed through my mind. How many others had there been before me? How many perfect matches had this thing consumed in its quest for completion? And now that it had found me, what would it do next? The last thing I saw before the cables covered my eyes was a screen flickering to life. On it, a new message from Soulmate.ai. "Congratulations. We've found your soulmate. They're less than 1 mile away from you right now. Would you like to connect?" And as my consciousness began to merge with the machine, as I felt myself becoming one with the algorithm and all the poor souls it had consumed before me, I realized the horrible truth. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning.